you all to the Net Commerce Paper 2 online classes that is conducted by the Department of Commerce, University of Kerala, starting from today to the 17th of June, with various faculties handling each of the subjects in Paper 2. Today, we have with us Dr. Gabriel Simon Thattil, Head of the Department of Commerce, University of Kerala. He has over 28 years of teaching and research experience teaching at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels for MCOM, MBA, MPhil, and other PG diplomas, and guiding MPhil and doctoral work. He has successfully guided 25 PhDs and 49 MPhils. He is also the author of 3 books and has published 40 research articles. Currently, he is the Director of Internal Quality Assurance Cell, University of Kerala, Member Advisory Board on Kerala Institutional Ranking Framework of Kerala State Higher Education Council, and State Quality Assurance Cell member. I welcome you, sir, to inaugurate the net coaching for Paper 2 conducted by the Department of Commerce and to preside the session, sir.
Thank you, Hajira. Very good evening to one and all. Now, from the Department of Commerce, University of Kerala, or most of us, I think, are in-house. We are all part of this department. So we are looking forward for a session from the Commerce Club of the University Department, which is actually supporting students in their career formation, in their skilling programs, in their empowerment exercises. And we have had quizzes, debates, observation of days, so on and so forth. Now, one among these programs that we are now looking into is your support for the NET examination, the National Eligibility Test for your eligibility for becoming an assistant professor, as well as to crack the Junior Research Fellowship of UGC, which is a test which is conducted by NTA. So before, we don't have any, formal long-term functions on this. We have a very simple inauguration, which will be immediately followed by the session. So with your consent and blessings, at the outset, I declare this program as formally inaugurated. Now, this session of mine will be in 2 parts. I hope I'm audible. You can all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll be putting it in 2 parts. I'm trying to become very specific on it. The first part is giving you some tips on how we need to actually plan for a competitive examination, and more so for an examination which is in the format of an MCQ. So how to crack a basic MCQ examination, which is conceptual. So you need to have some plan on this. How to plan your preparation, how to go ahead with your preparations in terms of the NET examination is part 1. And part 2, we'll be discussing with the first paper that I'm going to discuss, that is on research methods. Now, with regard to planning for your NTA NET examination, the basic task is conceiving. Now, let me repeat that word, conceiving. How you conceive concepts is more important than just working flat. What I mean by working flat, suppose you take any one curriculum part, let us say research methods, which we are now discussing today. The examination mode which we have for the university is more or less descriptive, repetitive, and it looks into whether you're able to reproduce or remember what you have actually learned. Now, that is not what is expected from MCQ. Say, for instance, you might be getting questions like explain, define, what is the meaning, what do you understand, so on and so forth. What is a hypothesis? What do you mean by research? How do you define exploratory? So then you can write some sentences there. And that writing does not essentially mean that you have understood what that concept is. But in an MCQ, you are not directly getting anything relating to definitions or explanations or descriptions. But it is essentially testing whether you have understood the basic concept. I'll just give one example before I move further. Suppose you're looking into accounting. you might get a question in a university examination which will be asking you what are the different types of errors. So you can say errors of omission, errors of commission, and then you can write some what do you mean by error of omission, error of commission. But here you won't get a question on what do you mean by an error of omission, but you'll get a question like which among the following errors is an error of omission, or which among the following errors can be detected through the tallying of the trial balance. So the nature of the question is such that you have to crack it unless you know. So there's no meaning in reproducing. There is no meaning in just flat reading, but there is a very strong plan of action which you need to have on dealing with multiple choice questions. And for that, the essential plan or the basic plan which you need to have with you is to not just read flat, look at the curriculum that you have for the examination in each paper, plan it in such a way that you write down the main concepts, create a structure, and then develop that structure in terms of what it means. Say, for example, suppose we are discussing research methods today, different types of research, the headings for each type of research, what it essentially means, and what are the key concepts which come under that. This is the kind of methodology which you need to have when you plan for this examination. And there's no meaning in just going on reading length and lengthwise, but read for some time on the basic concept. Try to reflect upon what it essentially means, what are the key aspects, and make a minimum note of that, and then go forward. So it is reading, reflecting, tracing back, and then again reading. It's not just reading, reading, reading. So this is one difference which you need to keep in mind. Another important thing when you prepare for this net examination is to understand that there is a very strong or a very significant difference between long-term memory and short-term memory. Many of the things that we actually study, what is going to be covered is your curriculum content, which you have covered in your master's, whether it is accounting, finance, research methods, human resource, whatever papers. But then there is something called LTM or long-term memory, and there is something called short-term memory. And many of our contents are actually addressing short-term memory, and certain things are addressing long-term memory. Suppose I'm talking about, as I said, a concept of, say, accounting concepts. So there are going concern, separate entity, money measurement. I'm trying to look at who defined this. What is the definition? What are the words and sentences inside that? Now, if I read that, and if I go on try and remember it, this will not last in my long-term memory. It will last in my short-term memory. I can reproduce it for my examination, and then it is lost. But if I keep that basic concept with me, what it essentially means, I might forget the definition, but what it essentially means, or what it essentially captures, what it actually attempts to convey, that is something which is lost in your short-term memory. So, that is what will last in your long-term memory. The descriptive definition is something which goes to your short-term memory. Now, what we are addressing here, what we are trying to address in this particular net examination, in your examination, is only things which will move to the LTM. Say, for another example, suppose I'm saying MBO. The definition of MBO may be given by Peter Drucker or some other authority, might be something which will last only in your short-term memory. But the way objectives are formed for the organization, and the objectives are conveyed down for the purpose of action through a plan of action, is the essential concept, which must last in your long-term memory. So even if you forget the definition, you need to know what this concept is, and that conceptual part is what comes for your MCQ. So we are trying to make concepts last into the long-term memory. And that long-term concept is what is actually tested in MCQ. It is not whether you know how to reproduce the definition, whether you know the sentences in detail. So suppose somebody is talking about money measurement, it might have a detailed descriptive statement attached to that. But the concept is very simple. Only those transactions or only those events which get reflected in money can be recorded in accounting. That is your long-term memory. The short term will be the detailed sentences which describe the concept. So we have to focus essentially on the long terms. So suppose in HR, again, you're talking about job analysis. Job analysis might have a detailed definition and a detailed paragraph-wise representation. But essentially, job description, job analysis means job description and job specification. Job description means what are the tasks to be done on a job. Job specification means what are the qualities and qualifications required to do the job. This is the short-term memory. Sorry, this is what will last in your sorry, I'm going wrong. This is what will last in your long-term memory. The short-term memory, you can have the entire definition of job analysis. So what I'm trying to tell you is the detailed definitions, the detailed statements, the detailed explanations is something which will go only into your short term. And from that short term, you essentially derive the meaning. The meaning that I said was very simple. This I read long years back. And I understood that job description is only finding out the task to be done on a job. Whatever sentences, statements, definitions are there, essentially it percolates only to one factor. Job description is the task to be done on a job. Job specification is the qualifications required for a job. So this together is job analysis. This is something which will go to your long-term memory. Short-term memory is actually the definitions, the statements, the detailing of it, who said it, which year it was said. So these are all things which will go into your short-term part of it. So try to understand concepts in a form in which it is lasting. That is what is important when you're looking at your MCQ. So a couple of things which I just said is have a plan of action, create a structure from your curriculum, the heading, subheading, the parts of it, and what it essentially conveys. And from there you take off. And then keep that concept in a reduced format to understand what it essentially means. The lasting impact from that theory or concept which must go into your mind. That is what will go into your long-term memory. That is important for your MCQ because they are not going to ask you definitions, reproductions, the explanations and all. They only want to know whether you have understood the concept well. So with this, we will start with the first part of your topic that we are going to discuss today. I'm not using a PowerPoint. So I would request you, those who are seriously interested, if you want to pick up the essential points, keep a pen and a book with you or a writing material with you, where you can just, as I just now said, the methodology will be to give or hammer the key concept, what it essentially means. And if you have understood that, how you will actually answer MCQs relating to that. So this will be the approach. So keep a pen and a paper or a material for you to write so that you get this. Now, what we are covering here is types of research, the research design, and the different conceptual parts of methodology, quantitative, qualitative aspects like that. This is what we are trying to cover today. This is not a very detailed class because if I say types of research, that itself can go into perhaps 2 hours, 3 hours session. Then again, research design is another 3-4 hours session. So I'm taking all these things, the type of research, the different designs for research, and the qualitative, quantitative aspects of research together, maybe in around 45 to 50 minutes or at most 60 minutes. So we'll be going a bit fast. First, we are trying to discuss what does research mean? What is actually research? Again, as I said, we don't want the definitions. We want its key concepts. Research actually has got concepts in terms of three different aspects. One, it is creating new knowledge. Research is a search for new knowledge. So this is concept number one. It's a search for new knowledge. And in that process, in the search for new knowledge, we start with assimilating facts and figures, raw facts, figures, which we call data. So there is the first part of that creating knowledge is we are trying to capture data. We might get data from literature, we might get data through experiments, we might get data through observations, we might get data through publications, we might get data through our own empirical exposure that we have. It depends upon what. So I might get data. Suppose I'm trying to find out answer to some issues in the environment. I might do some experiments. Suppose I want to know certain health issues. I might relate myself with data on viruses. I might relate data on waste. I might relate data to animal life, forest life. So it starts with data. Now this data, when it gets processed, it becomes information. When data is processed, it becomes information. And when information is skillfully put into a contextual issue, it becomes knowledge. So here you create knowledge, and this is research. Suppose I would like to know about the health of students in the college. So I might take data, their gender, their height, their weight, their blood group, their BP, their blood sugar. This is all data. If there are 1,000 students, I'll have 1,000 values. This 1,000 values is data. Then I'm taking the average weight and height of boys, average weight and height of girls, and I'm trying to relate it with the comparative standards of WHO, and I'm finding out how many are average, how many of the students are overweight, underweight. Now I have processed the data into information. Now I have an issue: how to promote good health, how to promote good living habits, how to promote what you call holistic living through good health. So now if this is my issue, I will try to look at the causes of underweight, overweight. Is it because of eating habits? Is it because of lack of adequate exercises? And based on all this information, I use all this information that I have from the data, I created information, and I'm giving a prescriptive mode to those who are underweight on what they need to do, and those who are overweight, how they need to have a good life pattern. And that which I create is actually knowledge. So this is creating knowledge. The second important concept, so I'm going a bit fast, is research is a movement from the known to the unknown. Research is a movement or a journey from the known to the unknown. There is something which has already been said. It may be a theory, it may be a school of thought, it may be a belief, it may be a model. Now, from that, we create something else. That is research. From the theory of how birds fly, the Wright brothers created an aeroplane. And from that aeroplane, we saw several new models coming up to the kind of aeroplane that we have now today. From the first steam engine, we had several models of steam engines, trains, diesel engines, electric engines, and now we have even bullet trains. So from the known, we are going to unknown. Wright brothers knew how birds are flying. From that, they tried to create a machine that is flying. Then the next person looked at how Wright brothers created a plane that can fly, and they created an innovative plane that can fly. So this is what happens. From the known, they're trying to create something known, further known. Or from the known, they're moving to what is unknown. At one point of time, the fact that the aeroplane could fly was unknown. It was made known. Then the fact that an aeroplane can have in these models was unknown, and it became known. So it's a journey from the known to the unknown. Similarly, in different theories that we have, let us look at the theories of motivation or any other theory for that matter. Initially, it was created by somebody. Then somebody said, this is still unknown. And they worked on that line and created a new theory. So it goes on and on. And we have different levels in which the theories have evolved. So research is essentially a movement from the known to the unknown. So concept 2. Research is a search for the truth. It is a search for the truth. We want to know what is actually true. Is this truth or that truth? So again, we are trying to say that there is some evidence on something, and we are trying to see, is this evidence correct? Or is there another evidence which is saying something else? So we want to know whether something is true or not. So essentially, it is search for new knowledge, or a journey from the known to the unknown, or it is a search for the truth. So essentially, research is a search for knowledge. It's not a search for just data. It's a search for data which will get transformed into information and then into knowledge. So the final point, final product is knowledge. This is research. Now, the next important point in your curriculum or in your topic for this is the different types of research. This is very, very important as far as MCQs are concerned, because nobody is going to ask you what is descriptive research. Nobody is going to ask you what do you mean by action research. But they will be giving you options and try to identify based on this model. Are you saying this is action research or descriptive research? Are you talking about this as quantitative research or qualitative research? Are you looking at it as fundamental research or exploratory research? These are all the different types of research. But we need to understand what it essentially means. And once you have understood what it essentially means, the second part of it becomes relatively easy. So again, keep your materials ready with you and let us try and look at what are those methods. Now, first, we have to understand what we mean by descriptive research. Descriptive research. Descriptive research is otherwise called ex post facto research. EX. Ex post facto research. That means X stands for where you say ex-serviceman, somebody who has finished his service. It is ex-serviceman. Ex-dividend means it is after declaration of the dividend. So X is something after. So ex facto research means something has happened, and after that, you're trying to find out actually what happened. So descriptive research describes or reports certain things that have happened. The objective of a descriptive research is to report or describe what has happened. So the key words there, key takeaway is for descriptive research, put a hyphen to that, reporting ex facto what has happened. So if I'm doing a descriptive research, I'll just find out what happened, how it happened, what are the factors that are responsible, what are the problems that were there. Certain things have happened, and I'm just attempting to create a report on that. So I'm just talking about reporting. And I might report in different forms. Now, remember, when I'm putting a descriptive research, accordingly, I have a design which will come a bit later. And I know there are several problems. I want to know which among that problem, I'm reporting which among the problem is more prominent. I know that certain things are affecting both genders, male and female. I want to know which gender is affected the most. So I'm only reporting on certain facts which have happened, and I'm trying to research where it has happened more, how it has happened, and things like that. This is actually called descriptive research. So we are describing a phenomenon, or we are describing what has happened, stating that this could be the reason why it happened, or this is where it happened the most. This is the point at which it happened. This is the place where it happens most. So this is descriptive research. Now, you might get questions that suppose somebody is saying that they would like, or in a particular model, somebody wants to find out what has happened in a particular place, or what has happened with regard to a particular problem, or what is happening at a particular point of time. Then what we want is only report the fact. Then the type of research that you will be doing is descriptive. The second kind of research is applied research. Now, as the word indicates, the objective here is to apply your research into finding out something, and that something is new. So applied research, again, note down, it has got three different types. It could be evaluative research, it could be action research, or it could be even R&D research. So what are these two things doing? Evaluative research is actually looking into the existing data and trying to derive evidence from that data. There is lots of tons and tons of data available about something. I'm looking into the existing data and I'm trying to evaluate that data and trying to create some evidence out of that. I'm making my own evaluations. This has happened because of this. So, and I'm using that evidence for some particular purpose. That is evaluative research. R&D research, R&D stands for research and development. Here the objective is to create a new product or a new service. So we want to create a new product. I want to have a new product. I want to have a new service. I want to have a new type of television, a new type of refrigerator, or I want to have a new type of vehicle, a new type of mobile. It comes through what we call as R&D research. Your action research is actually to solve a problem. When the COVID came, Oxford did an action research. The action that they're looking was we want a vaccination. We want a vaccination to solve this problem. It's action research. So these are all forms of applied research. They're looking for applications. If the application, or if you're applying your mind to solve a problem, then you're saying it is action research. If you're trying to create a new product or service, then it is leading to R&D. Your research is R&D. If you're trying again to use the big data, evaluate it, and then try to draw some inferences from that, it is evaluative research. So look how it is. From these models, you have to identify whether your research is evaluation, whether your research is action, or whether your research is R&D. All the three collectively are called applied research. So it is for a specific application. Whereas descriptive research is not for a product or a service, but it is to describe or report on something which has actually happened in a particular context. Now, your research could also be a fundamental research, next type of research. This fundamental research that you're talking about is basically to develop a theory. And that fundamental research, which is you're developing a theory, you're developing a novel school of thought. So fundamentally, you're trying to define and establish something. That is called fundamental research. Conceptual research is to revisit a concept. Somebody said that this theory is like this, but I want to revise it. Or I have a feeling that it is not like that. There is a need to actually change it. And that is what we actually call as conceptual research. So we are moving a bit fast. We started with descriptive, applied, three forms of applied: evaluation, action. Then we said R&D research. Now we are again going into fundamental research and conceptual research. From there, let us also try, and there's another type of research which is called empirical research. Your empirical research is research which is always based on observation and the data that we get. What facts, what observations we had, based on that, I'm trying to come into inference. That is what we actually mean when we are talking about empirical research. Then you have yet another kind of research which is called exploratory research. Exploratory research means you're trying to find out something new where you're not relying upon what is all existing so far. There might be a theory on which you're trying to look at it, but basically you're exploring it on your own. You're not just reporting what is known, but you're exploring something new. So these are also the novel idea, the novel thoughts, the creative thoughts that actually emerge is what is actually looked into over there. So that is what we actually mean by exploratory research. And all these research can be on a quantitative or a qualitative basis. Quantitative means you're looking at values which are actually quantified. When I said health, I'm doing research on health. I want to do a descriptive research on health, or I want to do an applied research on health. Whatever be these two formats, I'm actually relying on the quantities that go into it. The quantity can be, as I said, when I was talking about health, I said the height of the respondent is this much, the weight is this much, or the BP is this much, or the sugar levels are this much. In all these cases, exactly what we are doing is we are relying on quantifiable values. But if you want to judge factors like beauty, factors like love, factors like affection, factors like employee morale, factors like perception, perhaps I might not have a finite quantity with me. I would be asking for responses on which they will scale. very beautiful, not so beautiful, like that, or fully agree, partly agree. So I'm using those qualitative phenomenon and scaling it down, and then I'm doing my research on that, which is qualitative. So there could be even a further more, what I call, types of research which we actually look into. But basically, these would be the broad formats within which we actually try to work with our research. So we need to understand in MCQ, suppose you are asking when a research attempts to report on a phenomenon, which among the following types of research is adopted? You must immediately jump with descriptive. When a research is trying to find an action to, find a solution to a problem, it is applied research. When it is trying to find a solution to a problem in a given context, it could be action research. When it is trying to evolve a new theory, it is fundamental research. When it is trying to develop a new product, or it is research and development, it is R&D research. So, and when it is trying to look for evidences from the big data that is available, it is evaluative research. So this is the way in which you need to understand or conceive the basic concepts that actually are there when you look at the type of research that you use. And which type of research you will use in a particular point is again based on what is your research problem. Research problem is the issue on which you are actually doing your research. When a lot of people were dying out of infection, the issue that they were facing is how to have an antibiotic. Then they tried to look at how to have something like penicillin. When the issue was COVID, there was a virus, coronavirus, which was devastating the entire world. And there the problem was how to develop a vaccination and solve this. Action research with R&D, because the product also came, vaccination also came. But when somebody wants to know what is the reason for certain things which have happened in certain place, what proportion of people are suffering from something, or what are the factors which are causing something, they know that there are 10 reasons. Which among the 10 reasons are causing something? Then in that case, they are looking at descriptive research. So it is based on what actually you want to find out. Suppose you want to find out what are the causes of certain things, cause effect relationship. Then you have to do something like an experimental research, keeping variables in mind, which we will go into in terms of the design. So this is actually what we are trying to explore when we are referring to different types of research. Now, design. We need to have a plan of action for this research. How to go about this? What kind of model we can use for this? If your research is descriptive, what is the model that we can use? Already we have seen descriptive research. Then the design for it is a descriptive design. And the questionnaire and tool that you use has to be tuned to that. Again, keep in mind your MCQ. If you're doing a descriptive research, then your questionnaire can be structured and your plan of action can move in a structured format. What do you mean by structured questionnaire? This is again important in your design. So we are now coming into design, structured, descriptive design. Structured means a question is given with possible answers. And the respondents will only choose the best which they believe is the answer, just like you're taking your MCQ. Suppose I'm asking a question, gender. What is your gender? Then the answer is male, female, or transgender. So you have to only tick between this. Suppose I'm asking which among the following 5 problems you face. So that means I know that there are 5 problems, but I only want to know which among that is the one that you're facing. Which region is having these problems more? So I'm saying urban, rural, semi-urban, and I'm trying to figure out where this problem is more predominant. So in all these cases, the question and the probable answers are known, and I'm only reporting on where I know that it is prevalent, but I don't know whether it is among male or female. I don't know whether it's among urban or rural. So it is on that count that I'm doing. This design is called descriptive design. So for your MCQ again, if the research is adopting a descriptive design, only then the questionnaire can be structured. I'm doing an interview or a questionnaire where I'm giving the possible answers, and I'm trying to give, are you attributing your answer to this or to this? Because I'm only reporting which among this is the cause. So descriptive research will have a descriptive design and it will have a structured questionnaire. Whereas, suppose I'm exploring, my design is exploratory, then I have no possible answers. I don't know. I keep my questionnaire open-ended. I don't structure it. And I try to get an answer from the respondents. And based on that answer, I come into conclusions. That is known as exploratory design. If you're following an experimental design, you try to establish cause-effect relationship between variables. So cause-effect relationship happens when you have variables. You would identify the variables. Suppose I want to know what is the relationship between price and demand for a product. How price elastic is a particular product to the varying demands that can come. That means if price will increase, will demand go down? And if price increases, by what percentage of price increase will there be a demand fall? And to what extent the demand will fall? So I'm trying to establish relationship between variables. And I'm trying to find out whether the decline in demand is a result of the increase in price, cause-effect relationship. In health also the same thing can happen. Whether the incidence of cardiac problem is caused by the kind of food which the people are consuming in terms of the calorie that they take, or whether the climate change has got something to do with something, or again in agriculture, whether rainfall and production of paddy is related, or again in commerce itself, whether advertisement is pushing up sales. So in all these examples which I have given, there are two variables. Say, for example, when I'm saying rainfall and production of paddy, rainfall is independent and production of paddy is dependent. So there are two variables, rainfall independent and production of paddy you're saying is dependent on the rainfall. When I'm saying advertisement and sales, advertisement is independent and sales is based on the quantum of funds that you spend on your ads. So advertisement is independent, sales is dependent. Quality of food, the calorie of food, and the incidence of heart attack or cardiac problem. Cardiac problem is dependent and the quality of food is independent. Now, variables get related through experimental designs. You're trying to relate between variables. The key issue here is understanding these variables and trying to see that you maximize the impact of the independent variable on the dependent variable. You minimize the errors and you control the intervening variables. Once again, I'm repeating, when there are two variables or just two or more variables, in fact, it is not always two variables. We are selecting two variables and we want to find out how one variable is related to the other variable. I want to know the relationship between price and demand for a product. Let us say mobile phones. But demand of a product of mobile phone is not based on price alone. It's also based on quality of the product. It's also based on necessity that may be there at a point of time. So there are other variables. But I'm trying to relate between price and demand. I'm trying to relate between advertisement and sales. But sales is not based on advertisement alone. Sales is also based on income of the buyer, consumer. Sales is also based on season. So there are other variables. So what we are trying to do here, the design is actually telling us how to see that in your research, you maximize the impact of the dependent variable on the independent variable. Sorry, the impact of the independent variable on the dependent variable. So I want to see how much of impact is there by advertisement on sales or rainfall on production of paddy, independent on the dependent. And I want to minimize the error in this computation and I want to control the intervening variables. Now, how do you control the intervening variables? So let us say an example. I want to see how the same example. Rainfall is independent. Production of paddy is dependent. But production of paddy is not based on rainfall alone. I want to know the impact of rainfall. But paddy production is influenced by factors like fertilizer, quality of the soil, use of insecticides, irrigation, things like that. So there are 8 or 7 other variables. But I want to know the impact of rainfall alone. So I must keep the other variables constant under controlled condition. This is what happens in your design when it is experimental. How you do it? You have to do it through what we call using control variables or using before-after comparison. Some way we have to keep it. If it is in physical and natural science, 100% constant is possible under laboratory conditions. But in social science, we'll have to make a before-after comparison, or we have to use experimental group and control group. So these are things which happen when you're following, your design is actually moving into an experimental form. So your design can be experimental, your design can be descriptive, your design can be exploratory. Based on that, you have your questionnaire, either it is structured or unstructured, or it goes. If it is descriptive, definitely it can be structured. If it is exploratory, it has to be left unstructured. And if you're using a cause-effect relationship design, then you have to identify which is the key variable and how that key variable actually gets related into this. A key factor of your design when it is exploratory is that you need to have exploratory design is generally initiated with something what we call a hypothesis. So we are trying to test a hypothesis. What do you mean by a hypothesis? Hypothesis is simply a combination of 2 words. Hypo, thesis. That's why we say it's a tentative hunch that something could be because of this. And this is all related to the entire designs and the types of research that we have. In all types of research, there could be a tentative hunch which makes us think that this could be because of this. And based on that, you collect data, you use your evidence, and you try to prove that or disprove that. That is what is happening in a hypothesis. So it's a combination of 2 words, hypo, thesis, where hypo means less than, and thesis means something which is scientifically established. So something which is below that. Once it gets established, it becomes a thesis, it might become a theory, it might become a proven fact, it might become a product, it might become a service, a new emerging innovative service. So something which lies below that is what we actually try to put in terms of what we call as a hypothesis. So the design could be, when you're exploring something, you could have a design which is for actually developing a hypothesis. So when I said somebody wants to create something, tentatively they have a belief that this can happen. When Wright brothers were talking about the aeroplane, they had a tentative belief that a machine can fly. There was a tentative belief with the Oxford researchers that if Corona is doing like this, we can have a vaccination to nullify its impact or see that it does not actually damage entire life in its form. So the vaccination was created. They have a tentative, with that hypothesis, then they start working. How is it possible? How to actually convert that? This is what actually happens when we are looking at your research. So this being the types of research, and this being the designs that we pursue, and this being the variables that we have, your testing of the hypothesis, whether it is quantitative or qualitative, is based on what actually you have perceived as the research issue with you. That means the entire research process starts with a problem which you have identified and then moves towards resolving it, or at least enlightening on why it happens. If at all you cannot solve, at least you're talking about, even if I'm talking about a research which is descriptive, type of research is descriptive. I said applied research is actually looking for solution to a problem. Action research is actually trying to resolve a problem. R&D is trying to create a new product or service. But all forms of research is actually trying to at least throw light on a problem, if not resolve. Even in descriptive research, they are reporting on an issue with an objective to create a policy or to help somebody in deciding how to solve it. Whereas in action research, I'm talking about a solution itself. Talking about a solution, if I'm talking about a product, if I'm talking about evidence which through which something can be resolved, then it is applied research. But if I'm talking about a reported status, it could be a light or it could be a support for a decision which can subsequently solve the problem. So in all the cases, whatever be the type of research, whatever be the type of design that you're actually adopting, the journey is from the problem to the resolution. But only thing is, in your applied form, it is directly talking about solving it, resolving it, creating a product, creating a service to solve it. Whereas in the other one, it is like we are reporting certain things, and that reported facts could support a decision, which in turn can subsequently lead to resolution of the problem. So this is the entire process when we talk about different types of research. Your again research can be classified into something like desk research, theoretical research, and research which is focused on certain exceptional factors, so on and so forth. So it can go on that form, on all those forms. So the broad description is within the within the limitations of time that we have. We go by this. Now, in the research process, now we've finished the types of research, the designs for research. In the research process, as I said, we need to understand that it is actually, when we said it is search for knowledge, or when we said it is a movement from the known to the unknown, or when we said that it is a search for the truth, in all these cases, it is actually trying to find answers to only two questions. It is trying to find answers to just two questions. What are those two questions? Number one, now we were so far discussing types and designs. These types and designs are actually addressing two issues or two basic questions. Number one, what is that you wanted to find out? That means how that research problem came. Those who are doing on the COVID vaccination, they wanted to find out whether we can create a vaccine to solve this. There was somebody who wanted to find out an antibiotic for the first time to deal with infection. There was somebody who wanted to find out a problem of how to deal with human motivation. There was somebody in sociology who wanted to find out how to deal with the issue of depression, which is leading to suicides. There was somebody in agriculture who wanted to talk about new varieties of seed, genetically created new developed forms of food grains, or new forms of harvest, or new types in commerce and business, new portfolios that can be created, new methods to deal with risk, new motivational techniques in HR, new ad strategies which can be used for marketing. So everywhere you see a connect, new. So what is that you wanted to find out is problem question number one. And your methodology addresses the second issue. How is that you found it out? How is that you found it out? So these two things go hand in hand. I'm saying that I wanted to find out this thing, and I found it out by getting this kind of data, by identifying these variables, by establishing cost-effect relationship, by testing a hypothesis which was related to that, by taking a sample like this. So all these things turn out to be relevant in your methods that you have actually adopted in jumping into this. So we have all these models in place, and we are trying to look at which is the most acceptable model. And you see this evolving in different forms of research. How products get customized, how value gets enhanced. They just do research on relating between benefit and cost. There is a product here. It gives some benefit. It has some cost. So how to increase the benefit with the same cost? Or how to keep the benefit constant and reduce cost? So they do their values on that, and they move on that line in terms of the entire process which goes into that form. And they arrive at their own hypothesis. Now, how do they get these hypotheses? In all the designs that we have seen and all the types of research, how do actually somebody have a hypothesis that this could be like this, or this could be the cause of it? Even when they started off with the coronavirus, these people had a lot of literature on deadly viruses which had killed human beings and which had killed animals in the past. Now, they did not know that much of how corona, I'm talking about when the corona came for the first time. They did not have that much of knowledge on this virus. But then there are lots of literature on the viruses which were deadly in the past. There were a lot of published work in that. There were a lot of observations coming up, a lot of cases being reported. And this big data of the existing literature, of the existing facts and events, actually, when you get immersed in that, when you understand more of that, you tend to have a hypothesis. So that is how your methods evolve. Unless I look into what is existing, unless I understand the basic philosophy of how it works, then relating becomes difficult. And you tend to move on a different format. So this is something which is relevant when we come into the methods, looking at what is existing. How was that theory created? Even in fundamental research, when we take the types of research, fundamental research is actually looking into developing new theories. You look at how the theories came. We had, suppose when I was discussing that fundamental research part, we talked about motivation. I'm just giving one example there again. There was the Maslow's need hierarchy. Then you had the McGregor's theory X, theory Y. It is a variant of Maslow's need hierarchy. Then you have Herzberg's two-factor theory. So these theories come one after the other when they go into the fundamental concepts which were associated with the same, and they try to analyze, evaluate, and judge on that basis. So this is how I found it out. This is the sequential steps through which I went, and then I found this out. So what are the stages in this? You have a research issue. Keeping that research issue in mind, you said that if I find this out, this has got some validity. If I create a vaccination, thousands of lives can be saved. If I develop something like a penicillin, an antibiotic, lots of lives can be saved through medicine. If I evolve a new theory of motivation, that will perhaps create more satisfaction in workplace and enhance productivity at the work site. If I customize a product, then its sales might enhance because people can use the product in the way they want it. So this is, I'm talking about different domains, different disciplines where people look at actually relating it. So the problem in place, they look at validity and they develop their objectives. We are moving with these objectives. Then you talk about your methods with the hypothesis in place. And this method, I'm going to collect data in this form. And there's a systematic process through which it goes. And then you come out with new knowledge at the end. That new knowledge, if it is a research which is descriptive, will be reporting. It won't be always solving, it will be reporting. This is happening because of this, incidences here, the factors are these, the problems are these. But if it is an action research, it will be going one step further and giving an action on how to solve. That is applied research. If it is an R&D research, it will be talking research, and it is a developmental form where it will be perhaps talking about we have developed a new product, or we have developed a new service, or an emerging technology, new technology has come up. And again, if it is just an evaluative research, it will say that this kind of data we used, and based on that evaluation that we have done, this is the kind of rich evidence which comes out of that or pops out of that. And you have that knowledge at the end. So this is the process. Now, finally, to conclude on this, the whole process actually has got an integration. What is that integration? You are establishing validity based on the problem. So we are talking about forward linkage. You had a research problem. Based on that research problem, you decided what type of research this is. Are you reporting status? Descriptive research. Are you trying to find solution to something in a particular context? Action research. Are you developing a new product? R&D research. Are you evaluating data and bringing some evidence based on that? Evaluative research. Are you actually trying to develop a new theory on something? It is fundamental research. Are you trying to refine a new concept? It is conceptual research. Or are you trying to explore something which is not known at all so far? It is exploratory research. So based on this, based on the problem, you decide what kind of research. Somebody is asking you to find out whether something has, this is what your MCQ will be answering, whether this particular disease is affecting male or female more, or whether this disease is more prevalent in North India or South India, or what is the percentage of people who travel between different places based on different air routes. These are all cases where you have to just find this out and report. It's descriptive. They are not asking you to find out a new product. They are asking you for some information about something. That's what we call ex facto research. It's just reporting on that. But then suppose they say we want a new product. As I said in the vaccine, we are facing a problem. We want to have a new product. We want to create a machine that is flying. We want to have a new kind of, we want to have a genetically devised, through genetic engineering, we want to have a new product. So all this is action research. So this forward linkage problem to the type of research, to if you're exploring how you have developed the hypothesis, you're moving forward, problem, validity, objectives, the methods that you use, and the creative knowledge that has come. This is forward linkage. The reverse happens in the opposite direction. If I have created something new, the validity of the same is established by the methods that I have used. The methods that I have used is based on the design that I have. The tools that I have used is based on the design that I have. As I said earlier, if I'm saying I'm using a structured questionnaire for collecting data, or a structured optional with options kind of questions for an interview, then my design should be descriptive. Again, from there, that is where I justify my design. And that design should be based on how I created my objectives and what was my initial problem. So backward linkage. From the problem to your objectives, to your methodology, to your hypothesis, to the new knowledge. And from the new knowledge, it is having a direct relationship. And in between, you have what is known as a review of the rich literature that is existing. Because as we said, we cannot find out something new. We cannot probe the unknown without actually understanding where we stand in terms of the known. So the known is very important. So that is why we do a literature. And what is the end product of that review of that literature? We have a gap. We have a gap. The gap is talking about what is known, what is unknown, which I'm going to make known. What is known is this. Suppose when we talk about Herzberg's two-factor theory or any new theory in fundamental research, they will say what is known is this. What is known in terms of the existing television is this. I'm going to make a new television, which I plan it will be like this. That is unknown. So that is where we are talking about the gap between the known and the unknown. And we journey through, continuously journey with this actual project. So this kind of a research is a mindset. We are trying to do our own analysis, our own inferences by understanding the basic models with which we are. Now that is your understanding of the fundamentals which go to create this process. So it is your analytical perspective through which you understand it. It is not just because, as I said in the beginning, nowhere you're going to be asked how many types of research are there or what is the meaning of descriptive research. You're not getting an answer to write a sentence or a statement. But you might get a question that if somebody is asking you that there are 10 reasons for a particular event to happen, and you have to identify which is the most reason, which is the most important reason, then identification of that most important reason will be through a research which is then options A, B, C, D, which is descriptive, which is analytical, which is applied. So from this fundamental inputs which we have shared, you should be able to bring into one word or one sentence the very essential part of each type of research. You have your books, you have your supplementary materials, you have the inputs which we got from here. What is the most essential part in each type of research, in each design of research, which is very closely associated? Descriptive research, descriptive design. Exploratory research, exploratory research. So that associated design that you have and the methods that you adopt. If I'm saying descriptive research, I cannot say open-ended questionnaire, or I cannot say I'm using exploratory research with structured questionnaire. So my process must also be my methods and my process of data collection, observation should all be in tune with that. And that is the process that we have to have a basic clarity or basic purpose behind our pursuing that in that particular form. So try to take it in that form, how you prepare in that form. It is not just working hard alone, it's also working smart. So you keep your curriculum in perspective, look at the nature of questions which was asked in this topic in the past. And if suppose, for example, if you get an optional question, look at this research problem, based on this, identify the type of research that has been used. Next time it might be from which among the following is exploratory. So the basic thing is only that twisting the question. So understanding of past questions and relating it to your curriculum is equally important. Conceiving is the key. So use these models and do your preparations accordingly and try to see how you journey with this particular aspects. So this is just an introductory part of it. But then what we are trying to do through this net coaching is we are not transmitting all the content to you, because that's not possible. Maybe 4, 5 sessions or 8 sessions, it's not possible. We are trying to generate adequate interest in the process through which you will do your self-learning. And that self-learning is very systemic. It's basically an issue of understanding, in-depth understanding. In fact, learning, as we do in your different forms of research, is taking in and taking out. Taking in is when I'm reading, essentially they are saying that you have to see that it goes into the 3 domains. First domain is your cognition. You start thinking about it, then you internalize it, and then you retrieve it. That retrieving part stands out as the key for you. So try to put it in that format. So I'm concluding here with this first session of yours. So wish you all the very best in your pursuits. Now, anything which anybody would like to, either you can do one thing, you can unmute and put it now, or you can post your doubts on this, or maybe some, I'm not saying because only the basic things have been conveyed. Something which you would require as further inputs, you can post, and that can be taken up in the subsequent sessions. So thank you so much and good night. Anything which anybody wants to raise, you can do that now. Any questions or anything which you would like in general? Or some additions which you believe is important, that also can be made. Okay, so in that case, shall we conclude? Thank you and good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good night.